Welcome, all you free-range junkers. It's Carrie Christensen, your host, your pick and pal, and junkyard Jezebel. We're here to talk about long, delightful walks through the flea market, our best tips for repurposing or growing your vintage collection or business, and how we all respect the rust. All right, welcome to the pod. On this week's episode, we have something a little bit different for you that you're not used to. We're not going to talk about antiques or the provenance of antiques. We're going to talk about the story behind the antiques and who they belong to and how we might come to know more about that by the end of the night. We have some guests with us tonight, some friends from Holman, Wisconsin. We have James and Kyla here with us, and they are ghost hunters. So, guys, thank you for joining us and agreeing to do the podcast, too.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Yeah.
It's going to be super fun.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
this will be a good time, definitely.
So just a little background of how we met these guys. So we eat their delicious food all the time. They have a restaurant in Holman called Food Dudes that's really, really good. Great cheeseburgers, best cheeseburgers I've ever had and best fries I've ever had. Not especially great for my waistline, but that's okay. And we were talking to a friend of theirs that actually came into the store and bought a sign for them. And he was telling me about your ghost hunting that you had done at an insane asylum. And that's why he was buying you the sign. And I said, tell them if they ever want to come down. We have some weird stuff that goes on here from time to time. So yeah, tell us a little bit about how you guys started doing ghost hunting and why you were interested in it.
I guess, both of us kind of grew up with haunted things happening when we were kids, in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, where we grew up. And then we were always interested in the paranormal, all the shows that started coming out in the late 90s, early 2000s, and onto, today with, Ghost Adventures and Ghost Hunters and all those shows. We started realizing that you could just go online and pay a fee and you could investigate these places that you're seeing on TV. And, you're there for 12 hours, usually it's 7 o'clock at night till 7 o'clock in the morning. And,
It was actually after it was after the episode on TV of Sheboygan. And at the very end, it had a little blurb about how you can do these tours.
Yeah.
And so I looked at him and I said, no way. So right away I got online and started researching it.
Okay.
And then we stumbled across the one at Sheboygan.
Yeah.
Okay.
You have the Sheboygan Insane Asylum.
So how long have you been doing this then?
So the Sheboygan, was that
4 years?
Probably about 4 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah, probably about 4 years ago.
Yeah.
And when we did that one, we had found this group online where you could book tickets through them. And so that's what we did. That's what we thought the only choice we had that you could do. And they never disclosed how many people would show up.
Okay.
Right.
So we went all the way to Sheboygan. We showed up at the asylum.
Did a 10 p.m. to 2 a.m., 4 hours.
Yeah, that was the hours.
So
yeah,
there's 30 people there.
Oh, really?
we pulled up and there was a lot of
Holy
cars. And so we started getting nervous. Like, oh boy,
Yeah. Is it going to be like a haunted house where they jump out and it's more
Yeah,
like
yeah.
a sideshow than an actual,
Yes. But we got there and there were so many people that they put us in 2 groups.
Okay.
And then we separated, and pretty much toured the place, stopped for about 45 minutes in each section as our group, and just lights out, bring your equipment out, and
And then they just turn you loose?
They only turned us loose for a very small amount of time.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
everything was really structured with that group.
Okay.
right. So they kind of took you to the areas. They showed you what equipment they had. They're like, this is this. They turned it on. They let us listen to this. And right away, we looked at each other like, no, we want something more than this.
Yeah,
Definitely.
Yeah.
So after that experience, I stumbled upon a group on Facebook. It was a paranormal group.
Oh, okay.
So I just kind of introduced myself and said, hey, we're a couple. We're a married couple. We've always been interested in the paranormal. Is there anybody out there that, you know, is
That's smaller group.
interested too? Like, we're looking for an intimate experience. And I got 2 different responses from 2 different guys that actually are in paranormal groups in Wisconsin.
Okay.
So then they both said, you know, well, let me ask you a few questions.
Right.
Want to make sure,
Yeah.
make sure you're legit.
Yeah.
And then,
The next serial killer couple. Or
Right.
something.
right. And then we did our first one, and we showed up at well, we did another one with the group, but
Yeah,
it
we
was
did.
more intimate.
Yeah, we
Okay.
did.
At
yeah.
the same place.
And
no,
it was no,
we went to
place.
Ashmore
Okay.
Estates in Illinois.
Okay.
All of the paranormal shows have been there.
Okay.
We've been there twice.
And then we went to the Farrar School in Iowa.
Yes.
So it's an old abandoned school, has a lot of activity.
It was a country school, like a farmer
Sure.
for our, like, I'll donate this land, but one stipulation this has to be like a county school,
Mhm.
grades kindergarten through 12.
Okay.
And it ran almost 100 years.
Yeah. And then the nice thing about that one was they did give us free roam time.
Okay.
And of course, by 1 o'clock, like, a lot of people had turned in.
Yeah.
Sure.
And so we were like, oh no, we're going to go, because we had till 5 a.m.
Okay.
And it was there that he was walking towards the boiler room in the back, and they had given us this device, and the device somehow uses frequency channels to manipulate words, and it spits out words. And he was walking towards the boiler room.
And I had my headphones on and a spirit box in my hand. And we had already investigated the boiler room, 12:30 at night, but this was 3:30 in the morning.
Yeah, it was late.
We were the only ones left, Everybody else is either sleeping upstairs in one room that they dedicated for people to sleep in, or everybody went home.
Yeah.
Just called it a night. Now, it was like 10 degrees at 4 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, it was super cold.
But
Does temperature matter? Or no?
with your equipment, it does.
Okay, yeah, sure.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
that's right, because we have a laser light that
Yeah.
you use, and it projects a laser onto a wall. And the theory behind it is if something walks in front of it, it's going to
Break the
blur
laser,
out that
break
part of the
laser.
laser, right? So we had that, and it kept glitching out because it
Because
started
it's
getting
too cold.
cold.
Sure.
Okay.
But yeah, you were walking towards the boiler room.
But I had circled a couple times because every time I got by there, I was getting goosebumps. And she's down at the other end of the gymnasium, and she's got the ovulus that, can give you words, and she's listening. And finally, I'm like, all right, I have to go in there. So I walked in, and I went to take a right to walk in to the boiler room that we'd already investigated. As soon as my feet crossed the threshold, it said demon. And I was like, nope. And I started walking back towards her. As soon as I got into the gymnasium, the ovulus that she had said Greek. Well, that's my nickname that I've had since I was a little boy, Jimmy the Greek. He was,
His father is from Greece.
yeah.
Okay.
So like my aunt and my stepdad were truck drivers, so everybody had a CV handle back in the late 70s, early 80s. So when I'd ride in the semi with them, I was Jimmy the Greek. And as I've gotten older, people just call me Greek now.
So yeah, he's had it forever.
So the ovulus said Greek, and I was like, did that thing just say Greek? So yeah, so
And even the investigators the next day said, obviously this word had never popped up.
Okay.
And then just the history behind it.
yeah.
So then that really started
Yeah.
feeding our fuel for loving to do this stuff.
So did you believe in it hard and fast from the very beginning, or were you a little doubtful until you kind of got more of the equipment and stuff like that to back it up scientifically?
Well, I think because we experienced things at a younger age, like my dad died when I was 13, had just turned 13.
Okay.
We had drove to New York for his funeral, and a Greek funeral is 3 times a day, 3 days in a row.
Oh, goodness.
So on the very first day when we're in New York and we're getting ready for the very first funeral of the day, it's my turn to finally go take a shower. So I'm in the shower and I hear a male voice say, "Jimmy, come here." And I was like, I know I locked the door, okay. So I get down and take a shower and I walk out, and it's like all the female side of my condo's family and my mom and my sister. And I'm like, did anybody, open the door and say, "Jimmy, come here"? And they're all like, no. And I was like, maybe this was a sign from my dad that, hey. So, but then Kyla grew up.
I always grew up in old, creepy old houses.
Yeah.
Okay.
Where they have the old dry cellar clear down in the basement. And we were always creeped out because you just hear different things.
Sure.
Nothing ever really concrete. Yeah. But my brother's in the military and he was going to be deployed. So we all went to Fort Riley, my mom and our daughter and a bunch of people. They took this old barn and they renovated into Airbnb.
Oh, okay.
So we had rented this Airbnb. And my mom, who would never, ever, ever say anything weird, one day she pulled us outside and she goes, I just have to tell you guys something. And we're like, okay. And she's like, last night I woke up because I kept hearing a baby cry. So she said she sat up in bed and looked towards like the doorway.
Yeah.
And she saw a full figure standing there. And of course, us kids are listening to this and like getting goosebumps and going, what? Are you serious? So that just was another piece of it that really sparked interest.
Did something happen with Sydney there too?
Well, Sydney,
our daughter.
Yeah. So my mom, like I said, had pulled us outside to tell us because she didn't want to scare the kids.
Yeah.
And Sydney had no idea and she was inside. And just the couple of days that we were there, she just was like really sad, which I'm like, maybe she's missing home,
Sure.
She was like 12 at that time.
Probably.
Anyway, I just thought maybe she was missing home, whatever. Anyway, she started crying and we were just sitting outside and I'm like, what's wrong? And she's like, I don't know. I'm just really, really sad. So after my mom tells us this, my sister-in-law she should have never told my sister-in-law. She was terrified. So all night, my sister-in-law sat in like the main cabin area, and Sydney sat next
with her back to a wall.
Sat next to her, and Sydney just kept saying stuff like, "I don't know. It's just like there's somebody that's just very upset, and it's like I'm feeling upset, but I don't know what I'm feeling upset about." So then she's creeping my sister-in-law out because she's saying all of this.
Sure.
And so yeah, just that piece of it. We lived in a duplex over in Alaska, and our son, who would never do any of this, like he thinks we're crazy. And he was always terrified as a kid because we lived in this duplex and he was in the basement bedroom and there is like an electrical panel on his wall. And sometimes that gives off EMF and it says you can kind of like have hallucinations. And so, they do say that like high.
Wow.
High enough.
Just like when they put in this cap 2020, you know, the farmers were saying
Big
it can
power
disrupt
line
your cattle. And
yeah.
So anyway, he was in his bed one night and he saw like a full figure. He said it looked like a man that walked by his room.
Yikes.
And he had to have been 6, 7.
Maybe.
And
6?
he would never sleep in that bedroom again.
Oh my God.
Ever.
No, and we had bought him a like 42-inch TV so he could play video games in his room.
Mm-hmm.
And within like 3 days, it blacked out. You couldn't turn it on. Nothing would work. So we took it back to Best Buy and they exchanged it. And then the next TV did the same thing.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
So there's going on.
I think just the culmination of all the little different things, that's really what brought us to to do this stuff and go to these places.
Well, the fact that you can go to all these places.
Yeah.
Right.
You can go to all these places that you see and spend 12 hours there.
Sure.
Sure. And you have the unexplained happen. Like here, like you guys are saying with footsteps and you're like, like you said to me, I don't believe in this stuff.
Yeah, I don't. I can't explain it though either.
Right.
Rick watches all the paranormal shows and I always say, turn that off. I don't want that in my head when I'm going to sleep. I don't want to dream about that or anything, turn it on Big Bang Theory or something funny. and so he'll go in another room and watch them. And I don't necessarily believe in it, but there's been enough things that have happened here. And I was telling you, James, about our other shop. That's my grandparents' house. I don't know if he shared any of that with you, Kyla. So we have a store in Black River Falls as well.
Oh, nice.
That was my grandparents' house that they built in 1956. My grandma passed away 12, 13 years ago of a heart attack. And my grandpa lived there until he was 100 years old. and we were taking care of him in the house on hospice. And one of the last nights he was lucid, he wanted to talk to me at 2 a.m. about what I was going to do with his house. And he made me promise to keep the house. And I'm like, okay, what are we going to do with this house, family? We have to keep it. And nobody wants to live there. So Rick and I decided to open a second store. So in the time from when he passed to when we had the estate sale, and my grandma, keep in mind, had been gone now for 10, 12 years, something like that. She was diabetic, and she would do the insulin, prick your finger checks, and there'd be caps from those insulin things all over the house. Well, my mom had been cleaning that house for 10 years after she had died, and had been under every piece of furniture and shampooed carpets and all that kind of stuff. And we kept continuing to find those little prick covers from the insulin things in the weirdest places. Like she'd walk into a room and it'd be in the middle of the room on the carpet. And she'd be like, I know I vacuumed this room the other day and it was not there. And so she kept saying stuff like that to me. And I was just like, yeah, we all miss grandma, mom. You know, and just kind of, yeah, we miss her. And then we took over the property and started painting and kind of remodeling, getting things ready. And we put in Ring security cameras so that we could see it, because we're an hour away.
Right.
And they have night vision too. And in my grandma's bedroom, the camera kept going off in the middle of the night.
And only in grandma's bedroom.
And only in grandma's room. And it would say, there's a person in Carol's room, because we named the camera. Carol's room, Eagle's room, living room, you know, so we knew which rooms. And I look, there'd be nobody there. There'd be no like headlights on the wall or anything to explain it.
Different times, not ever consistent, not like she said,
not a residual like
nobody was in there. You know, I'd check the outside door camera to see if my dad or my brother or somebody had gone in, and nobody was in there. And that went on for the longest time until I was up there one day and I was putting up Christmas decorations, and I was putting glass ornaments on the tree, and they kept falling off the tree. And my aunt, my grandma's sister, kept saying, she would love it that you guys were doing this with her house. And I kept saying, bullshit. No, she wouldn't. She would hate this, because she hated having people judge her house all the time. And everybody that comes into the store is like, this is so amazing. I'd love to live here. Da, 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 da. And I am telling everybody, my grandma would hate it that I did this with this house, but what else were we going to do?
Right.
And so these ornaments would like fall off the tree. And I finally was like, oh my God, I get it all right already. You don't want me to have the store here, but you know what? It's here. And it's the only way this building's getting used. And Dad made me. So then it kind of slowed down. But every now and again, still the camera goes off.
Always just that room though.
Yeah.
And I've always gone back through. I mean, like it's got, because I do watch a lot of those shows, and I gravitate towards the ones that are like, not like automatically instantly go to, it has to be this.
Right.
I gravitate towards the ones like, well, it could be let's try to figure out what it's going to be first.
Let's debunk it.
And so I'm sitting there going back to the camera and like, just in case there was a car, you know, had the headlights that went through, and it was like it just that much of a delayed reaction to the camera picking, or somehow nothing.
Yeah.
Right.
And there's nothing. We've changed where stuff sits in that room, the displays.
Thinking that, you know, like first time we had an Elvis cutout in there, and we thought, that's got to be what it is. The camera's picking up the cardboard Elvis.
Right.
Yeah.
So we moved it to a completely different room. Didn't change it.
But I was going to say, it didn't do it all the time with that same thing. So I'm like, I don't think it is, but let's just move it. I mean, we're going to try to
right.
And so we've had different things moving around, and it just still.
Yeah, it's just kind of weird. And like we were telling you guys here, so when we bought this building, we had to do remodeling downstairs here. And I was down here all hours of the day and night painting and tearing down walls and stuff. And I'd hear footsteps, and I'd holler up the stairs because I thought it was Rick coming in, and he wouldn't answer me. So I'd go up there and I'd look for him. And we were the only two people that had a key to the building or access to the building. And then I'd look on Find My iPhone and see he was home. And I'd call him and say, are you actually home? And he'd be like, yeah, I'm watching TV. And I'd be like, okay, that was really creepy. There was just footsteps upstairs, and it was non-mistakable footsteps. So you need to come up here, or else I'm coming home and not staying here by myself ever again.
Right. Absolutely.
So, yes.
And like I said, since that time, we've got cameras on all the doors. You know, so I mean, anything that we'd be able to catch if it was a person, and it's not a person,
right?
That's coming through a door.
Yeah,
so it might be a person, but they're not entering through the door.
Yeah, the cameras here don't ever pick up like that there's a body or a human,
Yeah.
unless it
Yeah.
really truly is a human.
Yeah.
There was somebody digging in a dumpster one night. It actually was somebody digging in the dumpster on the camera. So yeah, I don't know, but there's been just weird stuff here, like noises of footsteps, category 5 cable for IT coming unplugged that nobody was in that room. The room was locked. I can't explain it. So we thought, why not let you guys come and do your thing and use your equipment and, see what.
Well, and you have
what
a
it
lot-
definitely.
and you have
Definitely.
a lot of stuff that comes from other people.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, so there
A
could,
lot of which are dead.
right,
Yes.
right.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
And a lot of people like that have home hauntings have
Yeah.
said,
Yeah.
I picked this piece up at an antique store
yeah,
Oh,
and it's
really?
been happening ever since.
yeah,
Okay.
They really do. Yeah.
Yeah.
They talk about that.
I suppose,
Yeah.
we all have things in our homes that are important to
Yeah.
us, a big
Right.
part of our identity that
Yeah.
would make sense in some way, shape, or form. So you were telling me, James, when you were in the other day, that when you guys do an investigation and you leave,
Yep.
you kind of have a little ritual of what you say to
we just like to say, hey, thanks, for letting us come in and investigate and, try to get to know you, but you need to stay here and you can't come with us. So,
yeah.
just
Are you sure?
yeah.
I know, right?
If you would take whoever's
Right?
here with
No,
you.
honestly, if that is something here that you do find investigate,
Yep.
it's fine.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
they've been here the whole time
Yeah.
Right.
before
Yeah,
us,
exactly.
I'm sure.
Right.
And nothing that has ever happened has been malicious,
Right.
nasty.
Exactly.
So
not really scary, just
no,
abnormal.
Right.
Right.
yeah,
Exactly.
just
Right.
stuff you can't explain. So just
Absolutely.
Well, like you were saying too, who knows what was on this property prior to this building being built
Right.
here?
Exactly.
Right.
For
Exactly.
those of you that don't know, we live in an area that is very it's full of remains in the ground because
Yeah.
there was a lot of Native
Native
American
American.
tribes
Yeah.
and things in this area because of the
Mhm.
Mississippi River.
Yeah.
So, Lord only knows what's underneath us and in the ground
Exactly.
around us and
Mm-hmm.
how that plays into things. But
Mm-hmm.
my brother wanted me to ask you guys a question too.
Okay.
what is the weirdest thing you've ever had?
I was just that.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry, Dal.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go first. I'm super excited.
Absolutely.
So we were at Edinburgh Manor. And Edinburgh Manor is over in Iowa. And basically what it is, it's an old poor farm.
Oh,
So back in the day, if your husband went off to war, never made it back, they stuck you in the poor home because you had no way to take care of yourself. So it was a poor home for them. It was a poor home for like disabled children. Basically, in those counties back then, if you had a disabled child, they brought the child there. You had no choice.
oh,
They took the child from you. Anyway, so that's the background of this place. They also like grew their own food and stuff. So it's out in the middle of nowhere.
Their own food, made their own clothes.
Sure.
Yeah.
I mean, they were self-sustained.
Yeah.
like a
So,
commune.
so they couldn't leave.
Sure.
Right.
It was more of,
Mhm.
like, you can't leave here. This is where you're going to live the rest of your life.
Okay.
So we showed up at this place, huge place, like 3
32
stories.
32,000 square feet.
Yeah, just
Wow.
a big place. And it was Jim and I, and then it was 2 other guys from one of these paranormal groups.
Yeah.
So it was just the 4 of
From
us.
Green Bay. That's from Green Bay.
Okay.
And at first, they give you a little tour about the place, and they said that there was this male. So the building was kind of split in half. One half was females, one was males. And on the male side, there was a resident there that like really took care of the females. So if anything happened, he kind of oversaw them, all this stuff. So we knew this background. So it's
And how did you know that background? Like, did you just research it, or did they
So the
tell
la-
you that?
so the
they
lady-
tell you that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
The lady that owned the property, we were lucky enough to get there at like 4:30,
Okay.
and she did like a full 2-hour tour with just
Oh,
us
yeah.
4.
Okay.
Gave us the whole background. She had,
Sure.
her and somebody, an author, wrote, did a bunch of research and wrote a book about this place, or
Okay.
writing a book
Yeah.
about this place. So she was just, giving us all this information.
And it's been on several of the big ghost shows on TV.
Yeah.
Okay.
So then they
Sure,
give you
sure.
backgrounds on that.
Yeah.
So it's, I don't know, 2:00 in the morning. And one of the guys says, would you do any provoking? And I'm like, oh, okay. Like, what would that be?
Mhm.
Well, there was this documented rape that had happened on one of the residents. And of course, you had this male protector.
Sure.
And so this I don't remember if it was a rape and a murder or if it's just a rape. But anyway,
Right,
they had it documented
rape.
because they had to come out there. And so they said, why don't you go down in that room, the female's wing? I was the only female. And so I said to Jim, I'm like, you're coming with me.
I know, right?
Yeah. I'm not going down there by myself. You're coming with me.
Yeah.
So then the other two guys that we were with were at the other end. And we set up every piece of equipment we owned. Like we had REM pods, we had tripwire EMF that if something passes by, it lights up. We had several other devices throughout this whole hallway. And so Jim and I go down there and he's like, just act like you're in distress, like a female in distress. Okay. So I'm down there and all of a sudden I'm like, help me. I start yelling louder. And all of a sudden that whole hallway lit up. Every piece of equipment we had. And then they were at the end and downstairs, one of the big metal doors, they heard it slam.
Oh my God.
So these guys have been to several places. And when that happened,
Waverly and all these crazy places.
Mm-hmm. And when that happened, that guy goes, I'll be honest with you, I almost ran out of here. And Jim and I just sat there, just boom, minds blown, because every piece of equipment, we had to pull the batteries out of stuff.
Because we thought it was nothing.
Because it would not shut off.
Oh my! So talk about the equipment a little bit. How does that work? Like, so does it just go off once and normally does shut off then, or how does it work?
So it's like a delay. Like if something passes it, it's going to go off. We have a rope light that we can either have sound on or just have the light go off.
Okay.
But once it goes near it, it goes off.
Yeah.
But then once it leaves, it shuts off.
It shuts off.
Sure.
Yeah.
And it's not sensitive to, like, do you have to be really, really quiet, or is it sensitive to when you
like when we set it up, you can walk all around it.
Okay.
It's probably got about what? Half a foot radius that you don't want to go into.
Right.
Because then you'll set it off.
Yeah. Okay.
So it's got a range of motion detection.
Yep.
Okay.
And then it also uses EMF. So any like electrical
energy,
and it will go
sure.
off.
Okay.
Yeah. So
but everything lit up and it would not. Yeah. It was, we had goosebumps so bad. And
and then
that was like the holy grail that we've had so far.
She had told us on the tour that, on both sides of the building. So the main way to get up and down the stairs at Edinburgh is this beautiful giant staircase that, went all 3 floors and down, but then on the sides were like, where you would, the back ways to get to like the basement or the laundry room or down into the kitchen. And those had those big, heavy
metal doors.
Okay.
And so one of the guys was like, somebody needs to go check that door. And I was like, I'll go check it. No problem. And as soon as I turned the corner and started walking towards this door, like I just got the worst feeling in the world. And I was like, oh. So I didn't actually open the door. I took my flashlight and waved it around, and then I gave the door a jiggle to make sure it was still locked, and I was out of there.
Yikes.
But
the owner of the building had told us during the tour
dog got locked
that she had her German Shepherd. She brings her German Shepherd on site. The dog runs around, and she explained how one day she kept calling for the dog, and the dog wouldn't come. And here it was behind that same door.
It somehow got behind
that had slammed when we were there. Yeah. And like you can't move the doors.
They're so big and heavy.
They're so big and heavy.
So
yeah. And that just, it just keeps feeding your passion. Like, where else can we do? What else can we do?
Sure. Yeah.
I mean, that's probably there's been creepy rooms.
Yeah.
But really nothing. I mean, at the Indiana State Sanatorium, there's a room where it's like the washroom, but it's like maintenance area, and then across is like all the industrial, turbines and everything to run the whole operation. But then is laundry, and then there's a room behind that, and in that room is everybody who's been dropped off their personal belongings that were just
they stripped them from them and they just threw them in this room.
So it, just to like, I mean, and it's just fast. It's all just still there.
It
and
is.
suitcases,
It's
and
all
kids'
just sitting-
pictures, and
Yeah.
notes and letters, people's Bibles, stuffed animals,
Hmm.
just
Yeah.
strewn everywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, that place
Um,
after it was the nursing home. It was no, the last place it was a nursing home. But they even left behind all the medical records.
Oh,
So
Yeah.
you can
so
grab
cool.
medical records and
Yeah.
read like so and so's medications.
Yeah.
And I mean,
Mm.
today when we live in a world like we do,
Yeah.
where I work at the hospital, medical records are
Yeah.
they're like top secret. You don't let those out.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was
Yeah,
weird that they had all those medical
computers,
records.
like all computers from like the
Yeah.
90s or
Yeah.
but we even found like work ledgers where people were getting written up, like
All been sick.
so and so didn't show up to work today.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh
Yeah.
god, look at this stuff.
It was like a scene from The Walking Dead,
It was
where everything was just like abandoned.
well, and like the
Oh.
roof, like in the
Yeah.
hospital wing of one of them,
Mm-hmm.
like you could just look outside because the whole roof
Crazy.
collapsed in on like
Yeah.
Yeah.
somebody's room.
Sure. Crazy.
And that place, if you ever see any overheads of Indiana State Sanatorium,
Which I'm now going to go look for. Absolutely.
Yeah.
so it's these buildings that all kind of connect through tunnels and everything.
Okay.
But this building up here, it looks like an upside down cross. It is the creepiest thing.
Weird.
It is the creepiest
Weird.
thing when you
Wow.
see it from. And that place, you could actually get on the roof. We climbed all the way up on the roof,
on the roof.
when we were there. I mean, it was like 100 degrees that day. There was black hornets everywhere.
That'd be a
It-
downfall.
Yeah.
Bats everywhere,
Mhm.
like flying at your head.
Yeah. Wow. The things you do just to go
Yeah.
and
I know, right?
potentially spot something. Well, I guess, or hear something or have your equipment go off.
Mhm.
Have you ever actually seen like light or an apparition or anything like that? It's always kind of been more noise or
Yeah,
Noises
or things like that.
equipment going.
and being touched.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
Kyla got touched.
okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's creepy as shit.
Yeah.
At Sheboygan.
I think that'd have been higher on my list than a door slamming.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Um,
Yeah. And
that
it's
was
and
a-
it's weird because obviously when you physically touch somebody, it's like electric. So it's like electric feeling.
Okay.
Yeah, it's talking about it gives me the goosebumps.
And that was the very first place. That was Sheboygan, the very first
Yeah, that
place.
was Sheboygan.
Do it again.
I know.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
So about how many times have you guys investigated through? You said about 4 years you've been doing it. So about how many? I mean, ballpark.
Man. So we've been lucky enough to do a lot. And we're lucky enough to, like, as we travel, like just by chance we were coming from somewhere and had an extra day. So we stayed at the,
We stayed at the Hilton Garden Inn.
in old downtown Milwaukee.
like
Okay.
downtown,
Sure.
beautiful old federal building.
So the concierge, when we got there, he was like, "What brings you to Milwaukee?" And Kyla, who is completely normally antisocial,
Not you, but but I'm like,
Ju-
I'm gonna
just
tell
a-
him where we were.
it was just like, we just were ghost investigating, and the guy's like, "Oh, you like that? You like doing that stuff?" And we're like, "We do."
Yeah.
And he's like, "So if you want, I could take you downstairs because in one of the banquet rooms,
Yeah.
we keep seeing this apparition of a woman, and it's
Yeah.
constant." And he's like, "Everybody sees it."
Yeah.
Oh.
So I'm thinking, okay, he's just being nice. Good.
Yeah.
Hey,
Yeah.
thanks,
Yeah.
bud.
Thanks. Here's $10.
So we go and walk downtown and do that whole river walk, find Fonzie and everything, and go to the market, have a great time, and go back to the hotel and eat at the restaurant there. And then we go back up to, and he had asked, do you want to see if one of our haunted rooms, one of our supposed haunted rooms is available? And there's two of
that's
them.
right.
And
And you
'cause-
willingly run towards that opportunity?
Yeah.
Most of us
We're
would
like,
say, hell to
No, we were like, yeah, we'll take that room.
yeah.
Yeah.
And it was weird because it was in the middle of the building, and this building is so beautiful because it used to be
is.
like the original Wells Fargo Bank,
Oh, okay.
built in the 1840s,
It's an old
40s.
building. Yeah.
and had burned down and then was built on again.
Oh,
Yeah.
But like all the brass fixtures on the stairwell,
Mhm.
they painted during World War I and II because people were taking copper and brass and giving it away. So they painted all of it so they couldn't take it, so they didn't know what it was. But we ate and we investigated our room, which was in the middle of the hotel, like the stairwell. When you walk into the house, like the stair was right, But we investigated the room,
not much.
And then I had went outside and I came back in. He's like, "Hey, when do you want me to take you down there?" And I was like, "Oh, you're serious?"
Yeah.
And I was like, "Well, let me go get my wife, and then I'll come back down with some equipment." He's like, "Great, this sounds great." And we went and investigated that area and got a lot of stuff on our motion detector, our EMF meters and the pathway. So we set motion detectors where they said she walked all the way down, and they would just go off. So, one right after the other.
Just like somebody's walking. Yeah.
Yeah.
And we were getting weird readings in the hallway behind there. Was like a service area for this banquet room. Just EMF would be going crazy, and then it wouldn't, and then it'd go crazy, and it was just a creepy feeling. And he had people that were coming down and checking it out, and this one gentleman came down and saw what we were doing. He's like, "Oh, hell no."
He was like, "No, I'm not having a part of that."
But the girl that was our waitress at the restaurant ended up coming down with them and was telling us our story about seeing this woman walk. And so they have big vents, and they blow the curtains, in this walking area. So they wanted to come by and make sure that our motion detectors weren't getting set off by the movement.
Right.
And we're like, literally, you have to touch, a couple of these, you have to physically touch and move them to get them to move, to go off. And they were just going off. And I was in the hallway, and Kyla hears the guy say, "Should we take them to the basement?" And we were like, Kyla's like, "There's a basement?" And they were like, yeah. So the original foundation from the 1840s building is underneath. And it's like 5-foot high ceilings.
Sure.
It's all beautiful, like stone. But it's a cave. It's a maze of what essentially is a cave. So he took us down there. So he opens this door, and we walk down the steepest set of stairs I've ever seen in my life, about 20 feet. And I go underneath the stairs, and there's like a big iron safe door.
Oh, wow.
And he's like,
"Oh my gosh."
And he's like, "Just watch your head. It's only 5-foot ceilings."
You're thinking, we're going to die down here.
But then he's like, since the Hilton bought it, because, we've had to come down here and do stuff, they've put motion detector lights on. So as you go, things turn on.
Sure.
So, every time you would want to investigate, you were in the lighted room, but like peripherals, you'd see stuff. And then, I had a spirit box going and got some, just some mumbled voices down there and stuff. But just out of the blue, like we had already investigated, and we were just going to spend the night in Milwaukee because we've never done it. We've lived here almost 25 years, never spent the night in Milwaukee. So why not? And we fell upon that, and
Boy, Rick and I have similar experiences. When we go look at somebody's garage, they say, "Hey, my neighbor's got a bunch of shit in his house too. Do you want to check it out?"
Right?
Not quite the same experience.
Right?
Yeah.
But honestly, that day you were here, we were kind of showing your own that spirit box you're talking about. Actually had a couple of words in here.
In this room.
Sure.
And
And
then like I think somebody like cleared their throat.
Too.
Because
It sounded like someone went, "Huh."
Yeah.
So one easy, nice thing that's super easy to get is cat balls. So they're just the motion cat balls that if a cat bats around, they go off.
Yeah.
But you have to, like he was saying, you really have to move them to have them go off. But they're a very cheap, easy thing to just kind of set in different spots.
Sure.
When you think there's stuff happening.
Sure.
And sure enough, they'll start going off.
Well, there you go.
If
There's your
something
ghost
moves it.
hunting shit to do it on the cheap. You just go to the
Yes,
Dollar Tree and you
you
get
do.
cat
So if you're hearing weird things in your kitchen, just get some cat balls.
Cat balls.
Well, our floors aren't always super even in this building. I'll just warn you that right now.
Sure.
So where you set it, be cognizant of that. But Yeah, we can probably get started with the ghost hunting.
Yeah, sounds great.
If you guys are ready to start putting out equipment, we'll see what this building has. And for those of you listening to the podcast, we do plan on uploading a lot of it to our YouTube channel and our Facebook page, so you'll get to see some of it in person as well. So
awesome.
And in the meantime, just one more little plug for their business. Food Dudes in Holman has the best food. No ghosts, but really good food.
A lot of anime.
We appreciate you guys coming and doing this. This is fun.
Yeah, we're excited.
Could do it in the month of Halloween too.
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, perfect timing.
And there you have it. Well, thank you again to our guests, Jim and Kyla, for being with us and helping with the ghost hunt. We hope you enjoyed these stories, and watch the video on our YouTube page for Gasoline Alley if you want to see what happened that night. There'll be 2 parts. One will be releasing this week and the other to be released in a few days. Thanks again for joining us.